Why do we score as low as 82 out of 92 on the Gender Empowerment Measurement Index? Why is it that years and years and over again, reports from the World Bank and Transparency International and the World Economic Forum and other multilateral agencies rate us so low in governance rankings and in transparency rankings? Why do we have these issues of access and empowerment and the core disparities of governance? We need to ask ourselves, why do we invest just 2% on education? Why is our effective enrollment rate in primary education just 51%? Why is secondary school attendance just 18%? Why do we fail to eradicate polio? And this is an area where Mr. Bernie and I have a cross-cutting interest in health. Why is Pakistan one of the 4 countries in the world where polio has not been eradicated to date? We need to ask ourselves these questions very dispassionately, with great prudence. These are not issues on which you will bicker over trivialities over state media. Politicians, state functionaries need to have the capacity to analyze, need to propose solutions, tangible solutions that can be cascaded in a stepwise manner, and state institutions need to have the capacity to take this on. I completely agree with the moderator who's not in the room anymore. We need to talk about tangible solutions. We need to get away from the theory and the jargon because it is absolutely an imperative. And I think within the broader remit of state functioning, it is absolutely imperative that we focus on pro-poor growth, on investments in the social sector, and what is very close to my heart, making governance effective, and more important than effective, transparent. And if we can achieve these 3 endpoints, the status of the population will improve. Women are 50% of the population. It has a bearing on the role they play in the society. It has a bearing on leadership. Without attention to these issues, a discussion on women is, to my mind, not complete. That's point number 1 I wanted to make. Secondly, and notwithstanding these broader challenges, we must be cognizant of the fact that there are certain norms, statutes, standards, policies, and guidelines that do need to be framed within the context of women and as they relate to access, rights, and empowerment. And I think here it is important that we step back and see where Pakistan stands. Let me assure you that there is no dearth of statutes and standards and norms and policies within the country. And this holds true for the subject on the discussion as well. The Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan provides and has the right covenants and clauses that deal with human rights and with women's issues, as far as I can read it. Secondly, Pakistan is the signatory to the Convention on the Discrimination of CEDAW, which is called, is popularly known as its acronym, the Convention for Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, as I referred to my notes, which is the international right of bills. Pakistan is also a signatory to the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child, which prohibits marriage under age 18. It subscribes to the family laws, and it has its own statutes that provide protection to women. There also has been an enactment of the Women's Protection Bill in 2006, which, notwithstanding its limitations, does provide legal avenues to victims of rape and criminalizes certain acts which were not within the ambit of criminal acts previously. The issue is not with policy and statutes. The issue is with how the state institutional machinery and the society in general implements them. And I think here we need to be reminded of our feudal culture, of the patriarchal norms, and of certain systemic processes of the state which have over the years completely eroded the capacity of the state enforcement machinery by virtue of underfunding, and has institutionalized graft and collusion as a way of functioning. And I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about, the graft and the systematic inattention to violation of rules and practices, the systematic and ingrained inattention to oversight when it comes to implementation of standards, sometimes in connivance, sometimes inadvertently. And these are some of the critical issues which continue to prevail, and you might not see them in urban Karachi. We might not confront them in the environments that we have the privilege to grow. But when you go to the peri-urban areas, when you go to the slums in the urban areas, when you go to the poor, to the rural environments, when you go to the footholds of the feudal landlords, you see that they're very prevalent. What is the state's leverage in environments like these to uphold norms and standards and rights without the context of which any discussion of women's leadership outside of the context of the corporate world, to my mind, is fairly meaningless. And that's the second point I wanted to make. The third point that I want to make, and now I'm going to navigate through some of the handwritten boxes that I've made while I was sitting here, is the issue of addressing inequities of power, money, and resources. Inheritance is absolutely imperative. The Pakistani law does not forbid women from inheriting, but only ownership of non-movable property is only, as far as the statistics go, only 36% of the women own immovable property, and effectively 9%, according to the labor force survey, have any control over that, have any meaningful control over that. And the systematic barriers to that, from a cultural standpoint, not from a legal standpoint, need to be addressed. Secondly, when you look at the private sector and when you look outside of the corporate Pakistan, there are, of course, women entrepreneurs. There are women in small and cottage industries. There are women in small businesses. There are women that work out of their home. And how can the state institutional machinery be strengthened and configured to support them in an institutional and a sustainable manner is a question which I think, to my mind, should preoccupy the Ministry of Finance and Commerce. They should come up with very tangible and specific recommendations on how they wish and how they plan to promote their access to finance, for instance. And here, let me tell you that not all is bad in this country. A lot of good things have been done. And I'm aware of the work that has been done in the microfinance sector. I'm aware of the facilitation that women are provided in the small and medium enterprise. There is, of course, a dedicated bank, but of course, somebody very astute needs to look at the institutional impediments that continue to keep holding back from making women access these sources of finance. Maybe it just has to do with advertising. Maybe it just has to do with disseminating information. Maybe it is just an issue of public transport, which is what the chairman of Anglo Chemical was talking about. But you need to analyze and do systematic research